Is there anything at this point that, comes as a surprise to you, or are you're still learning new things, or?
No, nothing's a surprise anymore. I'd say the biggest surprise to me was how much women lie about abuse. I did not realize that.
Yeah.
Because that I figured out when I was doing interviews, and it was like every other show, I was abused. And then guys, like you were saying, like people put in the chat, like questions to ask that I never would have thought. Because when a girl's crying or like telling a really sob story, like about her abuse, your first instinct is not to say, well, did you file a police report? Did you do this? Did you do that?
Yeah.
That's not your, as like a human, you don't really want to do that.
And how dare you, because you're supposed to automatically believe all women. You can't, if you ask any questions, now all of a sudden you're victim blaming, right?
Yeah, but I would just say in general, even if it's a guy, like if he's telling me an abuse story, my just as a person, I'm not. Now I do. But back then, that was not my like initial reaction to just not believe, like, but it is kind of awkward, right?
Well, it's kind of like, you got to ask women what's so attractive about a narcissist, because every woman has seemed to have dated a narcissist.
Yeah. But so I started asking them like, hey, what happened, right? And there was this turning point in one of the shows where this girl said she was abused. And I said, okay, like, did you file a police report? No. Okay. Well, tell me about like the fight that led up to the abuse. And because her story was that she was thrown down a flight of stairs. And I was like, well, that's terrible. I don't want anyone to be thrown down a flight of stairs. But she tells the story, well, I went over there and I wasn't supposed to go over there. And I was fighting with him in front of his kid and he wanted me to leave and I wouldn't leave. And so he was pushing me out of the house. So I look at her and I said, so you were trespassing? Like it wasn't your.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I found that out, I just couldn't believe, like, I can't think of a single abuse story on the show I believed or grape.
Well, also, like, when you look at the Duluth model, what is that? That's the idea that the men are automatically perceived as the primary aggressors in domestic violence cases. But then also, isn't there statistics that women are the biggest initiators of domestic violence, especially, I guess, if you look at the domestic violence rates in lesbian relationships, much higher than domestic violence in gay homosexual relationships. And also, why would we not attribute women to being more violent when, being more emotional leads to violence?
I know. I think I have always said that women are not nurturing, because I went down this rabbit hole where I was trying to think of anything we were better at. Like anything I could back up with like a fact.
The best chefs are men, right?
No, that's kept happening.
Right.
And then I looked up, I was like, well, we're better with infants, right? Wrong. Did you know if there's an infanticide? Do you know what that is?
Infanticide is
after the kid's born in the first year, if a kid's murdered, I think it's called an infanticide.
Okay.
That it's like 95% women are the perpetrators.
Wow.
So if a baby dies within the first year of life, it's almost like the police don't even look for male victims or male perpetrators.
Yeah.
Because it's almost always a female or the mother. And women are more likely to kill the elderly too.
What I don't understand about that, though, is like, you've heard these horror stories about women or just babies, infants being left in a dumpster.
Always women.
But the thing I don't understand is that, what about the story about women can leave their child, for adoption with the fire department or something? Why wouldn't they put up their child for adoption sooner than they would just abandon their baby?
They're mad they reproduced with a guy they didn't want to. That's what I think is behind it, is they I think that after women have kids, it's like post-nut clarity. And like guys, like they think they like a woman and then they sleep with her and they realize, oh, I just wanted the sex. I think women have that with like kids. Mm-hmm. And so, some women are just like, they go crazy. They kill their kid, Yeah. But I had a back and forth with Sneeko on a show and he just kept saying like, why do you hate women? Like women are like meant to be mothers and da-da-da-da. And I was like, I don't think so. Mm-hmm. Because if women really wanted to be mothers, we would have all, it's kind of like, I think we're like, it's like revealed preferences versus stated preferences. It's like we would have all had kids at 20, but none of us wanted to.
So do you think that women still today want to be married? Do they want families? Did they?
No, I don't. I think it's like as simple as no, they don't.
So my question also is like, when I think about, men kind of exercising their leverage and maybe going MGTOW and taking, because all men can really do at this point is maybe like take themselves off the market. Mm-hmm. But how much impact is that going to have when most of those men are already deemed invisible to women to begin with. So it's kind of like, you know, if women only have eyes for the top men, those are the men engaging with the women and the other. So I think that you know, but women still kind of, even though they're independent, they still rely on a lot of those 80% of men. Like they don't need those men, but they still need their money because they want to sell them OnlyFans and they want to, you know, they still need attention from those men. So I think that if you can kind of like, you know, create a middleman or something, you know, something else that those men can focus on instead of chasing those women who don't want to reproduce with them or don't want to engage with them, then all of a sudden now those women have, you know, they have to step up and, you know, kind of conform to what those men want. Right now, they don't have to care because they already have all their needs met.
No, that's so true. But I just think it's like, it's something I even thought was true. Like we all wanted to be married and be mothers, but actually my boyfriend now said something to me once. He's like, if women wanted to be in relationships, they would be. And he's like, as a man, he's like, I cannot fathom having as much choice as you guys have and not being in a relationship. He's like, if we had 1,000 matches on a dating app, we would be on dates. He's like, if they wanted to be in relationships, you would go on a date every day of the week until you found a guy you wanted to be in a relationship with. But women aren't doing that.
Right. No, I mean, that's the thing. It's like a lot of women are hanging out with their girlfriends or they'd rather, you know, I think I did an episode called Single by Choice. I think women are single by choice and men are single by circumstance. I think that, you know, what needs, going back to what I was saying before, what needs are women currently deprived that they're forced to be with men? Currently, I don't think they're deprived anything. They can get all their needs met, but men are still deprived needs that they're forced to be with women, which is, you know, companionship, intimacy, you know, sexual access, all that other stuff.
It's also, if you look at the top like TV shows that women watch, it's all side chicks. No, like The Handmaid's Tale, Scandal. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. I think we just love being side chicks. Like, I think it's that simple. I think women, we just want to be side chicks.
Well, I mean, but don't you think that even the side chicks want to be the main chick?
Yeah, but then they become the main chick and they get bored.
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, or it's like, they like tame the super, like, you know, I have a friend, we're like the most unlikely of pals. He's a open relationship, super liberal. He's done like vegan protest guy. And I was like, why would you do open relationships? And he said, whenever I would go monogamous, they would start treating me bad. And he's like, I just said no. And so it was almost like pragmatic for him as he tried being like, he said, they only treat me well when they think there's other women.
Yeah.
And so even the open, like, who's more of a cuck, Crowder or Destiny? You know what I mean? Because Destiny, it's like you look at all the women he was banging. It's like Lauren Southern, like it's attractive, and you could maybe argue they're crazy, and now he paid for it later, but he ran through like all of. Like,
well, it's still, I mean, whether you're
he's hooking up with
whether you're conservative or whether you're liberal, it's still gynocentrism. You're still basically. You know, you ever hear the expression, what is it, chivalry and feminism?
And by the way, I'm a fan of Crowder. I didn't mean to throw a shot.
Okay.
Sorry.
You ever hear the expression, chivalry and feminism are two sides of the same gynocentric coin?
Yeah.
It's basically both place women at a status above men, both place women on a pedestal. So we have to kind of like, you know, realize that chivalry is the very premise that feminism is based on. Feminism would have never gained traction without the help of men. So I think that we have to look at, you know, this idea that you know, women are prioritized. You know, they are the prize. You know, whether you're a liberal like Destiny or whether you're conservative like Crowder, and it's all about, you know, keeping the happy wife, happy life, got to keep her happy and stuff, right? And when women have options and when women have power, they tend to, you know, abuse that power and stuff. Now, maybe men would do that too, but all I'm saying is there has to be some type of, you know, checks and balances. And there used to be checks on hypergamy. That's what Shah talks about, you know, with the dowry. And now there aren't. And, I think there's a male version of hypergamy. I think that women wanting the bigger, better deal is the equivalent of men wanting the younger, hotter chick, or maybe even multiple women. But the family court only punishes men pursuing their hypergamy.
Right. Yeah. And I actually don't think men are as bad with leverage. I do think they would cheat, right? I do think, yeah. I had like a turning point for me where I had a guy on my show who was like a conservative, like he had a very big Christian, like conservative brand. And then he was like and he would say like cheating is bad. And then he was like dating like 4 girls from the show. And he probably wasn't like exclusive or whatever, but I don't think any of them, and different girls are telling me they're dating. Like people talk, Well, and I was like, oh shit. Most guys will cheat when they are given the option.
Well, even like when we talk about the whole body count issue and stuff, right? If we're coaching men to be the high value man that plows through women, aren't we kind of sculpting men to be the very thing that we condemn in women?
Yeah.
So is that kind of, and even when we complain about body count, does it make sense to complain about women having high body counts at the same time we're complaining about men being incels?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I just kind of see it like that's kind of how it is, unfortunately. Like I don't know if you see it changing in our lifetime. I don't, but people call me black-pilled, so.
I mean, it's almost like all roads lead to MGTOW.
Yeah.
And I think that, but at the same time, I think the people who really have it correct, the most correct, are the MGTOWs and the MRAs. Because I think that the other stuff just doesn't necessarily, most men are not going to be high value men. And even if all men did become high value men, high value would just become the new average.
Right.
Because like I said, average men are already high value in the eyes of foreign women. I mean, women are just going to keep raising their standards and say, oh, well, every man's a millionaire now. I want a billionaire and stuff, So I think that, this is going to take, a long, long time. But the question, must be asked, do the laws have to change first? Does the culture have to change? I think it's a combination of things because obviously, if you change laws and the culture isn't supporting it, then it sounds like a dictatorship. And if the culture changes, it's just it's just all about, at least we have to have these conversations and then kind of see where it goes. Cause it's a roulette wheel of just, voices in the space and they're all competing with each other.
And so do you think that the content's been effective? Like, do you think that more men are waking up?
To a degree. I mean, I'll ask you this because I've noticed this myself. Do you feel like, you're hearing things in your interviews now that you weren't hearing 5 years ago?
Yeah.
I've noticed that as well. I mean, there's more awareness, I think, about, the entitlement of women, things like that. But, you still have a lot of guys just kind of on this self-improvement hamster wheel. And like I said, nothing wrong with self-improvement, but, I don't think self-improvement is going to fix all of men's collective issues.
Yeah, well, I don't think those guys care about men's collective issues. They're in it for themselves. I don't want to speak for all of them, right? But the ones, the guys I've known, like that came on the show and I just knew were very like successful with women. Yeah, they don't care. They don't care about men's rights. They're having a great time. They're not going to stop.
Not only that, but I mean, let's just acknowledge how many high level men have been destroyed by the legal system.
Yeah.
So it's like, being high value isn't the end all be all. You're still subject to many laws. I mean, this is why, a lot of people, when they become a passport bro, they have to stay in that country because if you bring her back here, you're subject to the laws and you're subject to,
They just become kind of pragmatic though. So they'll get Ring cameras if we're talking like Me Too type stuff. They'll get like, I know some of them get the girls to text them the next day and say they had a good time or whatever. I'm not saying I'm not saying it can't happen to them, but the way they're going to do, I'm just telling you, that's what they do.
So basically we've gone from friends with benefits to now sleeping with the enemy. You can't even trust your partner.
Oh, they don't.
You have to maintain frame at all times. If anything happens, it's your fault because you're supposed to lead. I mean, this is, it just always will circle back to shaming men.
Yeah, well, I think the way they would kind of see it isn't really put it? It's not like they just don't care. They're trying to get sex. Like they're not really thinking about all this stuff. They're just like, I want to bang 3 hot women a week.
Right. Now imagine
and not care about what happens after.
Right. Now imagine if we had a safe and regulated outlet for men to fulfill that need of theirs. Now all of a sudden they can take care of that, and now they can make smarter decisions. I mean, everyone's always telling men need to be strong. And I'm saying it's not that men need to be strong, men need to be smart.
Yeah. Because, oh my gosh, have you ever tried to talk a guy out of like marrying someone he shouldn't marry? You can't.
No, they're going to shoot the messenger.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. No. And that's the thing. It's like, oh, another one bites the dust, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, you know, but you have to sit there and be congratulatory and everything. And, you know.